You know, it's fun hearing Lions players continue to talk about their head coach.
You are Locked On Lions, your daily Detroit Lions podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hi there, everybody. My name is Matt Derry, and this is Locked On Lions. Welcome in on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today is Thursday, February 6th into Friday, February 7th. Thanks for making us your first listen, everybody, and checking us out wherever you get your podcast. Thank you to those of you that subscribe and watch us for free on our Locked On Lions YouTube channel. Appreciate you as well for doing that. Locked On Lions today on this Thursday edition is brought to you by PrizePicks. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNFL. Use code all lowercase LockedOnNFL to win $50 instantly when you play $5. Coming up on the show today, Aidan Hutchinson speaks. He and his mom and sister flew down to New Orleans for the Super Bowl, and we're on Radio Row today. At least Hutch was. He was on the Pat McAfee Show and talked all about his rehab and Dan Campbell. And I want you to play a clip. I want to play a clip for you of Hutch talking about Dan. It was fantastic. Dan. So we will do that momentarily. Also, Lions have reportedly added another assistant coach to the offensive staff and the arsenal there. And it's a guy that was actually on our show years ago. I will explain coming up momentarily here on Locked On Lions. The St. Brown's podcast mentioned something interesting about Cooper Kupp and Myles Garrett. I want to talk to you about that. And at the end of the show, I got to ask a question to the audience about the Super Bowl. So we will do that all here on a Thursday edition of Locked On Lions. If you missed yesterday's show, go back and watch it or listen to it. Jeff Risdon from the Lions Wire was great. We talked about the Senior Bowl, the draft, the Lions, and great to have JR on the program. We always appreciate Jeff coming on. Shout out to our everydayers that are out there that watch and listen to the pod. I am getting absolutely inundated from many of you, especially on LinkedIn, which I appreciate. I'm trying to respond to as many of you as I can, but so many everydayers are out there that watch or check out the podcast. I appreciate all of you. And thanks for being with us. No shout outs today, but we'll do hopefully some tomorrow or Monday, but appreciate all of you for loving the pod and being with us. You know, always appreciate it. We can't do this without the audience. That's for sure. And got some special things coming up with the show that I'll explain later on. So later on this month, but all good, everybody. Hey, Super Bowl is coming up on Sunday. We know this. Most of the big media, all the radio shows and TV shows, most of the folks are down at Radio Row at the Super Bowl. It's funny. I used to work with when I was at Detroit Sports 105.1, the now defunct Detroit Sports 105.1. My first program director there was a guy by the name of Jason Dixon. I like Jason a lot. Jason and I went to the Super Bowl along with Tom Mazaway, the great Sherry Powers, our engineer, still at Beasley, by the way. But we went down to the Super Bowl twice in the 2 years that Jason was the program director. First year we went to New York City, where basically we ate Famous Ray's pizza. Is it Famous Ray's or Original Ray's? That's a Seinfeld joke. First. We ate Ray's pizza every day at Radio Row. And then the second year, we went to Phoenix, went to Arizona. And Jason loved Radio Row in the Super Bowl and was obsessed with it. And now he's at Sirius XM and he goes down and runs the Sirius XM Super Bowl channel. So he's down there every year and the guy is obsessed with it. So anytime I think of Super Bowl and Radio Row, I always think of my guy, Jason Dixon, who's a super guy. Anyway, what was I saying? Oh, yeah. So Hutch, Radio Row, today, on the air with Pat McAfee, asked how he's feeling. He says, I'm rehabbing, it's almost done, and I'm going on with my life. He was asked if he thinks the Lions made the Super Bowl, would he have played? And he says, yes, I think so. Talked about Aaron Glenn and what a great leader he was. But there was a segment I want to play for you where they were asking Hutch about Dan Campbell. This is from the Pat McAfee Show earlier today, which I loved this clip, and I thought I should play it for you. But it reinforces how much Dan Campbell means to this organization and what he's done to help turn it around. Take a listen to this from the Pat McAfee Show with Aidan Hutchinson.
How about MCDC?
What about him?
Just legend. You see that photo of him smoking a cig with his wife way back in the day?
Awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
Ollie posted.
Sweet long hair.
Really? Yeah, long hair.
She
cig.
just posted it, or you dug in the archives?
Within the last week.
Yeah, happy birthday, I think.
Within the last week.
No,
or happy anniversary, maybe?
Yeah, there wow.
Something like that.
He's a stud. He's a stud. I mean, he's what you see is what you get with him. So he's so great, and I'm probably going to be there with him now for he got extended for God knows when. So we'll probably be together for a while.
His messaging always the same as we see. He feels like a very deep thinking meathead. Right?
Yes.
Like, I think that's a good way to describe it.
What's so great about Dan is for good or for bad, he'll tell you, he'll get something off his chest. and whether it's anything, it could be something that I did wrong maybe, or he doesn't like. He'd be like, Hutch, like that kind of pisses me off, but I got to get this off my chest. And he'll say it, done, and we'll move on. So he's very unique in that way where I feel like you're always getting the real Dan Campbell.
Yeah, instead of letting it linger. Well, obviously this guy is your leader. Never forget
that's
it.
brilliant.
Yeah,
Legend.
never ever forget it.
It could be Tarzan.
Yes, and he's shredded.
Yeah, Tarzan with a cig.
All right, we will continue on YouTube.
All right, there was Dan Campbell, or excuse me, Aidan Hutchinson, Lions defensive end and All-Pro and Pro Bowler, with Pat McAfee today, talking about Dan Campbell. And what stood out for me in watching that, and it's a subtle thing, but Hutch saying, look, when Dan Campbell's upset or when he wants to talk to you, he gets it off his chest. All right. And then it's over. And he kind of made the hand clapping gesture, kind of like wiping his hands and saying, we're moving on. And that's the kind of leader you want as a head coach. That's the kind of person you want running your, to use a Pat McAfee term, program, right? You want a guy that's going to say, hey, look, Hutch, JMO, whomever, what are you doing? I didn't like it. You made your point, which Dan does. You talk to people, you communicate to your players, and then you move on. And obviously, if there's something major that has happened, the Lions have been such good, I don't know, citizens, soldiers, whatever you want to say. They've been great in that locker room, and they have one focus, and that's winning. Have they had players make mistakes on the field, off the field? Absolutely, they have. But it sounds like Dan Campbell runs the show, is in charge of it, makes his points, and they move on. And they're learning experiences. There's accountability there. There's a book. Do I have this book with me somewhere? Hold on. Where is this book? I have it. There's a really good book that we utilize in my office. It's called Winning with Accountability by Henry Evans. All right. There it is right there. You got to have it. Your leaders have got to make everybody on the team or at the office or the group or whatever follow the accountability chart, whatever it is. And if you know your role and shut your mouth. If you know your role and there's somebody at the top saying, hey, I got to hold you accountable for something like that. And I need to let the team know that I'm holding you accountable. And we're going to talk about it. We're going to iron it out and we're going to move along. And we're going to hopefully make ourselves better. That's what you want. People could say, oh, well, Dan Campbell got out-coached in the NFC Championship game against the Niners 2 years ago because he did this, he did that, he was too reckless, whatever. And that could be true. A couple of things could be true. This year, the Lions lost the Commanders. They weren't ready to play. And Dan always puts it on himself. But when you hear the players say, man, we're going to be together for a long time. I love that he calls me out. And then we move on. And then it's, wipe your hands of it and go. That's what you want. There are so many coaches and managers, if you want to talk baseball, that don't have the pulse of the team. And the team suffers. And those conversations of, Hutchinson was kind of on the video putting his hand up like he had a phone, he's talking to him on the phone. Hey, what are you doing? I didn't like that. I wanted you to know about it. Let's work on it and let's move forward. That's what you want. And there are plenty of coaches, managers, whatever, leaders of organizations that just don't do it. I'm glad we got Dan Campbell here. I love how the players talk about him, want to play for him. And look, Myles Garrett's shooting his mouth off at Radio Row about talking about the Browns. And, he did a whole circuit yesterday talking about how he wants to be traded, right? Don't tell me that Dan Campbell wouldn't want Myles Garrett on the team. Of course he would. We've talked about it for days. But I bet you Dan Campbell would be somebody that would say, hey, Miles, next year, if you go to Radio Row, you're not going to talk like you talked this year. And have that conversation with him. Because Myles Garrett is still property of the Browns, yet he's, yesterday made the rounds basically, I'm saying bashing the organization, but that might have been a conversation of, you know what, I let everybody know I'm looking to go to a winner. Don't have anything bad to say about he was on certain shows of, oh yeah, Washington would be great. This would be great. It's like, there's a certain amount of professionalism. And I like Myles Garrett. I didn't love yesterday, but does that still mean I don't want him? And I'm going to get into that with something that the St. Browns brought up earlier today as well on their podcast. Lions have a new offensive assistant coach. We're not sure of his role yet, but he's somebody that has been on this very podcast. We'll do that coming up next, right here on Locked On Lions. All right, folks, we got the big game coming up. Super Bowl 59 is here. One game, two teams, endless possibilities, and there's no better way to make every play more exciting than with FanDuel Sportsbook. It's the Eagles, it's the Chiefs, whether you're predicting the first touchdown, calling the MVP, or even betting on the coin toss. Yeah, you could do that. FanDuel makes it easy to get in on the action. With live betting all game long, you can adjust your bets as the game unfolds and feel the thrill from kickoff to the final whistle. The live betting feature lets you stay involved no matter what happens on the field, and the app is super easy to navigate. Plus, knowing that you can place a $5 bet and potentially win $200 in bonus bets for the Super Bowl, that's the icing on the cake. Download the app or head to FanDuel.com today to get started. You bet just $5, and if you win, you'll score $200 in bonus bets. That's FanDuel.com, FanDuel.com. Bet with FanDuel, the official partner of Super Bowl 59. Got to say hello to a guy I worked with for many, many years in radio, a long time ago, Damon the Dog Perry. I saw a clip today on one of the social medias. Damon drives Detroit. He's selling cars now. He's a great dude. Lee to Lee, Damon W. Perry. All right, so the Lions today have reportedly added, according to Adam Schefter, a special assistant on offense. We're not sure if he's going to be run game coordinator or offensive assistant or assistant to the head coach. Who knows? All right. He's not going to be pass game coordinator because that's going to be David Shaw, the former Stanford head coach. But according to Adam Schefter today, Bruce Gradkowski, the former journeyman NFL quarterback, is going to be an offensive coaching assistant for the Lions. Gradkowski played in the NFL for 11 years. He was a 6th-round pick of the Bucs. He played in Pittsburgh. He played for a bunch of different teams, started 20 games, was kind of a career backup. But Bruce Gradkowski, the last 2 years, has been the offensive coordinator for the St. Louis Battlehawks. First in the XFL 2 years ago, last year in the UFL with the Battlehawks. When Gradkowski was, I believe Anthony Becht is their head coach, former Jets tight end. Met him at the Super Bowl years ago. Good guy. Everybody's a good guy today. Battlehawks were second in the XFL in scoring 2 years ago and second in scoring this past year, averaging 26 points per game. So not sure if Gradkowski is going to work with quarterbacks or work with Jared Goff or anything else. He was with the Rams back in 2008 when Brad Holmes was also a scout with the Rams. So I like Bruce Gradkowski. And what's interesting is, and I had to kind of confirm this with our guy, Dave Salfaro, who used to work at PFF. But at one point a few years ago, Dave reached out to me and said, do you want to have Bruce Gradkowski on the show? He's working for us at Pro Football Focus. So we had Bruce on the show. I could go into the archives and try to find it. But I don't even remember what year it was. I put it into Google, like Bruce Gradkowski, Locked On Lions, Bruce Gradkowski, Matt Derry. I tried. I can't find it. I will take some time and attempt to do that. But he was a great guest. He really knows quarterbacks very well. Just was coaching in the XFL and the UFL and has been in the league. So I really like this hire. He lives down in Toledo. My sources tell me he's still in Toledo where he played in college and has been spotted at his local church in Toledo on Sunday. So he could still be in Toledo and drive on up to Allen Park and live down there. So a cool hire for the Lions, a guy that really knows the game, has been around the analytical part with PFF, and has been coaching the last couple of years. So always like to see fresh names. But again, I was impressed with him when he was on the show years back. Bruce Gradkowski now joining the Lions coaching staff. I think that is pretty cool. So keep an eye on that soon, that the Lions will make all of that official. As far as the St. Brown podcast, very popular podcast, as we know, Equinemius St. Brown, the brother of Amon-Ra, the two of them have a podcast together, and they're on weekly, and they're very entertaining. They've had Lion players on. The Craig Reynolds interview is hilarious because they just bust his chops and everything else. But I saw a clip today, which I thought was interesting. I'm not going to play it because there's a lot of foul language on there, especially from Equinemius. But Amon-Ra is on there talking about Cooper Kupp, and he's like, can't believe that the Rams are going to be trading him. And, you know, he knows the offense. He knows everything. He's so smart. He runs great routes. Like, Amon-Ra's just lathering up in the Cooper Kupp butter. We talked about Kupp a little bit yesterday and how that's just not a fit for Detroit. I don't think. Not when you're paying a 32-year-old receiver. If you picked up Cooper Kupp, you'd have to pay him $20 million this coming season and $19 million the year after. It's a big cap hit and plays pretty much the same position as Amon-Ra. So Equinemius, the Amon-Ra's brother on the podcast, says, man, stop talking about Cooper Kupp to Detroit. Because Amon-Ra goes, imagine Cooper Kupp on our team with me and Khalif Raymond, and J-Mo, and Tim Patrick, and all of these guys. It's funny. And he's like naming the whole offense. And Equinemius goes, stop, bro. Like, effing stop. You don't need him. You need Myles Garrett. You need defense. You need Myles Garrett. And Amon-Ra's like, oh, so I guess it's just we need to just stack up on defense. And he's like, yeah, you don't need anything else for the offense. You're naming all these guys. Stop talking about Cooper Kupp. So the other St. Brown brother saying what a lot of us say out loud, and what I say on the show out loud is, no, you don't need Cooper Kupp. You need Myles Garrett. And that obviously, you know, there's no different breaking news unless, you know, I'm recording this now at 4:00, but there's not going to be any big news about Myles Garrett anytime soon. I think the Browns are dug in and don't want to move him. Garrett wants to be moved. There's going to be plenty of time to have that discussion because we are 7 months from the season starting. But it was funny hearing and seeing the other St. Brown basically tell his brother, yeah, look, no, you need defense. I always like the fact that Brad Holmes does appear to want to add good players regardless of where the depth is at that position. Years ago, he drafted Hendon Hooker. And people went, why are you drafting a quarterback when you've got Jared Goff? All right. Why'd you draft a running back at 12 when you just signed, David Montgomery, whatever. All right. Brad Holmes is going to take really good players. Now, as far as needs go, yes, the Detroit Lions have a need along the defensive line. You're not going to likely have Lee McNeil start the year. DJ Reader, for what he was paid this past year, was a little bit of a disappointment. Still a good player, but is he worth $13, $14 million next year, the way he played this year? What about Levi Onwuzurike? You can't re-sign everybody. Zadarius Smith, you bringing him back at his salary figure on another 1-year deal. Now, I know it's the last year of his deal, so he might be motivated to get one more contract. But you look along this team and you go, man, if the O-line stays intact, man, the running backs, the receivers, the tight end room, the quarterback room, linebackers are as strong as this organization has had in that room in a very long time. The secondary is pretty darn good. You're hoping Carlton Davis comes back. But the biggest question is the depth along the defensive line. Will a Broderick Martin step up? Can Josh Paschal get any better? All right. I'm not saying Brad Holmes is going to draft a running back at 28. I don't think so. But I'm just saying, I think they will look at more of a positional need this year. And when you've even got on podcasts, Equinemius St. Brown saying you need defense, I think we all know where the Lions kind of need to butter their bread this offseason. And again, go back and watch or listen to Jeff Risdon yesterday, Shamar Stewart from A&M, Mike Green from Marshall. There could be some good opportunities for the Lions to bolster that defensive line come the draft in April. So we'll see about that. We'll see if those guys are even available at number 28. All right, coming up next, a little Super Bowl talk. I have a question for folks. As Lions fans, what are we supposed to do on Sunday? We'll get to that coming up next. This show is sponsored by Betterhelp. What do you want your 2025 story to be? Every January brings a new chapter, 365 blank pages waiting for you to fill. And if there's a part of your life that you want to rewrite or a plot twist you've been craving, why wait? Life isn't about fleeting resolutions. It's about taking control and becoming the author of your own story. Think of therapy as like your personal editor, helping you craft the life you deserve. It's not just for crisis situations. Therapy can help you develop healthier coping strategies, improve your relationships, and empower you to be the best version of yourself. Whether you're facing a challenge or just looking for personal growth, therapy is a powerful tool to help guide your journey. Whether it's learning how to set boundaries or tackling stress in new ways, therapy can help you develop skills for a better tomorrow. Even if you've never tried therapy, the benefits are clear. Finding someone to talk to and gaining fresh perspectives can make all the difference in how you navigate life's ups and downs. I have a therapist. I do this once every 2 weeks, and it helps me for sure. Write your story with BetterHelp. Visit betterhelp.com/lockedon today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/lockedon. All right, we are just a few days away. Super Bowl 59, live and direct from New Orleans at 6:30. You got the Chiefs, you've got the Eagles, and it kind of begs the question. And I don't really know if I have an answer. I was working with somebody today, a coworker, and they asked me. She said, "Who do you like on Sunday?" And I said, "I'm kind of torn. As Lions fans, who are we supposed to root for this weekend? Do we root for Brandon Graham because he's from Detroit and he's a great guy? Darius Slay, former Lion, also on the Eagles, just like Brandon Graham. Are we rooting for Kansas City because if the Chiefs win 3 in a row next year, how sweet would it be if the Lions were to dethrone them? Are we rooting for Philly because we would feel better that the Lions lost to the team that lost to the Eagles, who ended up winning the Super Bowl? You see my point? Or are you just sick and tired of Kansas City? I know some of you will play the Travis Kelce, Taylor Swift card. I like her. I think she's really good people. I think he's good people. So I'm not sick of that, really. I don't know how many times Fox is going to cut to her, but if it really bothers you, then I mean, the Super Bowl is not as hardcore football as a lot of the other games because of the commercials and everything else, the halftime show with Kendrick Lamar. But who are we supposed to root for? Who are you rooting for? I'm torn. I wish I could sit here and tell you, oh, I'm Team Chiefs. I'm wearing actually a red shirt today, but this is one of my companies I work for, Q5. Or do I root for Philadelphia? There is a part of me that would like to see something different and to see the team that has gotten a lot of breaks. No, I'm not a conspiracy theorist that thinks the referees want the Chiefs to win. Have there been some egregious calls against teams against the Chiefs? Yes, there have been. And I think Patrick Mahomes does get treated with some kid gloves sometimes, not all the time. So yeah, maybe I root for Philly. It would definitely be weird to see Nick Sirianni, who's a bit of a wild card, grab the Lombardi trophy. I don't know. I'm torn because I think a three-peat, which by the way, we can, I guess the Pat Riley trademark of three-peat is going to be allowed. I guess the Chiefs or the NFL made a deal with them, but that would be pretty cool. This is something that we've seen Patriot dynasties. We've seen 7 wins by New England, but never 3 in a row. This would be a first. And Mahomes is special. He's really good. Like, you know, people hate Patrick Mahomes because of how they treat the referee thing. I don't know. I'm torn. I am torn. But the one thing that these two teams are, they're just well put together. You know, Veach, the GM in Kansas City, Brett Veach, Howie Roseman, the GM in Philly. You just see how it's done. These two teams are kind of a model, and the Lions are right there too, in terms of ownership, general manager, how they draft. Kansas City has lost so many guys to free agency, to trades that they just couldn't afford, and yet they've restocked in the draft. Whether it's Karlaftis or McDuffie or whomever. In Philadelphia, same thing. Jalen Carter, Nolan Smith, Nakobe Dean, who's hurt. The kids in the secondary this year, Mitchell and DeJean. Those are really good draft picks, really good. And now those players are blossoming, and that's how you win. Yes, a few years ago, the Eagles went on a crazy spending spree, and they were like the Lakers. They were like the Dodgers, and it didn't work. Now they've drafted well, albeit it's a lot of Georgia Bulldogs, and they're enjoying the fruits of their labor right now with how they do it. So maybe I'll root for Philly just because I want to see something different. And again, we're NFC people here. Maybe Lion fans would feel a little bit better if it was the NFC team that won, because you would say, well, we would have played the eventual Super Bowl champion. And I know there are a lot of Lions fans that are so sick of watching other teams play and not that we're there. That the Lions are not there, that they're not even going to watch the game. We're not even going to be as invested because everybody's heart was set on Detroit being in this game. So we'll have to see. All right, we're back again tomorrow. I want to do a little bit more Super Bowl talk and talk about some synergies between the Lions, the Chiefs, and the Eagles and what it's going to take for Detroit to be in this game next year. We will talk about that tomorrow right here on Locked On Lions. Thanks, everybody, for making us your first listen, checking us out wherever you get your podcasts. We'll also do a call of the day tomorrow. If you want to be our call of the day, please go to speakpipe.com/dairy podcast page. That's speakpipe.com/dairy podcast page, and go there now. And we'll make that happen. Thanks, everybody. Talk to you again tomorrow.